Shit. Now I gotta think about everything again because I had it all planned out.
My fault.
Do you need a finger in the butt?
Still never
That's
got
it. Everything can and will be used against you in a court of public opinion. Don't doubt that it won't. They will crucify you. They do it to me all the time. But to no effect. There we go. I feel empowered. Hope everybody had a good week, good weekend. There's something that's come up lately. You know, I've been one of those individuals that likes to talk about success. And I've been talking with a couple of buddies of mine. And the more I think about it, now don't get me wrong, money is, it works best in the medium it was designed for, and that is to spend. But I'm beginning to wonder if the dogged pursuit of money as an indication of success in life is not necessarily the thing that's most conducive to how we are wanting to live following this pagan path, this also true spirituality. Because there's so many other things that show up, and I was looking through it, but I was talking with a friend of mine, and they said, I never really used that word. I never really used that word success. But now stability, that's something that we can look forward to. And I got thinking about the idea of stability. When you look at someone, like specifically a soldier, I think one of the things that made me proudest to be a soldier was that I was stable. My ducks were in a row. The details of life were handled. I knew exactly what to do and when to do it, to move forward, move up, and move up in the ranks. I knew how to handle business. You know, I didn't make a lot of money, but things were taken care of because there was a stability there that was a platform for success, as anyone, however you might wish to understand it, I guess the best way. You know, I see one very prominent speaker on YouTube. He's the $50 billion man, and he's got some really good stuff. But he really advocates for the sacrifice of everything about the family unit to grab that success, to make that money. He never went to his children's games or their ballets or that active in their life. You know, when they grow up, yeah, they'll get over it and everything, but I really have this real strong feeling. I mean, if I bring a child into the world, I've got an obligation there I've got to handle. I can strive for success in a lot of ways, but perhaps stability might be the best way to understand that. Okay, that's all well and good, Brian. What the hell are you supposed to do with that in Austria? How are you supposed to put that out there? What's that supposed to look like? Well, earlier in the week, I came across something that was written by Kvedolf Gunderson, and it's a good book, don't get me wrong. I think there's some things that we're missing. I'm going to read this to you because I think it's important. It's about the Thule. The Thule is he's the law speaker, so to speak, at the thing. He's the one supposedly that reminds the presiding judge of certain things. He's the one that gives the pronouncement. But the Thule stands in the same relationship to Wotan that the vulva does to Freya and Frau. Okay, just as the vulva embodies the might of those goddesses during her trance, when the Thule sits upon the Thule's seat and speaks, he is the earthly embodiment of Wotan's wisdom and Woadfield's speech. And Havamal, where Wotan is specifically fulfilling the side of his being, this god calls himself Thimble Thule, the great Thule. Okay, so he's speaking from a position of authority. And if you're going to speak from a position of authority, there's a real requirement to know what the fuck you're talking about. Just plain and simple. There ain't no two ways about it. The work of the Thule is characterized by inspired speech. That is, speech flowing from the worlds beyond Middlegarth to Thalia. Speak as a Thule may imply some prophetic capabilities, though not of the same high degree as the Volvas. Now, It's interesting that the idea that we might have access to those things when we speak to others from a position of authority, that is no small responsibility. Any man that's ever been in a position of leadership understands what it means when someone is counting on your every word, your guidance, so that they might live, be it on the battlefield or just simple handling those small battles of life. And I think if you don't have that stable platform, you're not able to do it. I've seen lots of men in leadership positions who were dedicated to that pursuit of their own ends to make that dollar so they might be more important than the guy next to them, but unable to do the hard work of handling the damage or the wreckage of their past to the point where they might be able to think clearly or create an idea or a coherent thought that isn't an emotion-filled argument. We see that today amongst so much of what the media tries to drive us to do. We are herded by the ideas and concepts of emotion-filled arguments. People literally take to the street with these emotion-filled arguments to neatly sidestep the hard work of becoming someone who is capable of handling the most basic of necessities, and that is to be the matriarch or the patriarch of their home. That's it, nothing more. Not the leader of business, not the leader of a company, not the leader of a nation, but to handle the small details of just their home. I see groups of individuals that are terrified to do this. So we have this tool to offer inspired speech. We have these women that walk around with catskin gloves and throw the bone, so to speak, to help us figure that out, handle the small details of life in an inspired way so we might have that stable platform necessary to move forward. Where does this get confused in Austria? Why are we not talking about this more? Why are we not understanding about laying this foundation? What is the action we need to do to begin to comprehend the responsibilities and obligations that we have in this world? And yes, I am the perfect man to talk about it. Now, to speak as a Thule may imply prophetic capabilities, though not of the same high degrees of volvas. It is certainly a term describing great wisdom expressed in a framework which has considerable ritual significance. Ritual and ceremony is that thing that helps cement in our minds the idea that what we're doing might allow us to make some kind of connection, to help focus our train of thought on something higher and more important than just gratification of the senses. Now, this appears in the Halva Malraux, then shifting his focus from the general audience and earthly wisdom to the young initiate Lodfafnir and wisdom of a more magical spiritual character. State suddenly, it is time to speak as a Thule on the Thule seat at the Well of Weird. When the speaker moves into the seat, his words become imbued with the lore of a god, goddesses flowing through him. He speaks with the full authority of the Esa Doomstead at the well. Now, I don't think that just anybody can go sit in that seat. Matter of fact, I know they can't. Frey decided to go sit on that seat one day, and he lost his marbles because he saw something that was so beautiful that he couldn't catch. It was out of his reach. It was out of his league. Frey representing the gentle spring sunshine and the gentle spring rains, and Gerder being a representation of the northern lights. Two very opposite things. Now, how would you go about meeting that? You sit on something like that when you're not prepared, and it will leave a mark on you. Every bit as much as an encounter with the malevolence of this world will leave a scar on you. You may not see it, but it's right here. You'll feel it every day. It'll be right here in your thoughts. I wasn't worthy. I wasn't ready. I wasn't worthy enough. Sit on that Thule seat to assume authority that we're not really prepared for because we haven't done the hard work of becoming who we're supposed to become by dealing with the wreckage of our past, by being honest with our mistakes, by being courageous enough to stand there and admit them, to being courageous enough to stand there and say, you know what, you're absolutely right. This was my fault. I could have done better. And taking the ass chewing. So there's another thing that I picked up in the Army. I couldn't give an excuse. If my soldiers fucked up, that was my fault because I wasn't being the leader they needed. I wasn't being the kind of man that inspired them to want to try to do better. It's no easy role. And I got to tell you, there are countless hours of training and counseling that go into building a leader in the military of all kinds. It is a never-ending process. Every man is being prepared to fill the role of the man above him in case of an emergency or in case of promotion or the natural progression of the character and age of a man. There's no difference with regards to our spiritual development. We can't just jump in there as the high priest if we haven't handled some of these glaring personal defects that really brought us to the road, the crossroads where we had to change the spiritual foundation of our life. You see, I see people come in all the time and they come to this crossroad, and usually it's such a dynamic crossroad that the idea of whether or not they will even continue to exist past it is in question. I may not make it through this. Life is so tough right now. I have created such a mess of things that, well, I might not make it through this. Now what do I got to do? They show up in ostrich. But we're not encouraging them to build that stable platform, I don't see. Some places do. Most of my books, if you read them carefully, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Come in, now it's no longer the devil. Now there's this group over here, this group of people or this group of people. Well, now you can hate them instead. You don't have to hate the devil because now they're doing it. Now somebody else begins to accept the problem. And we give it a new coat of paint, and we put on a hammer, and we continue to operate with the same kind of righteous indignation that allowed us to move forward to a dangerous crossroads to begin with. And the idea of stability is never there because we've always got someone to blame. How far is that getting us? See, I see a huge awareness of it across the board from my position. But I don't see a cohesive idea beginning to take shape because no one's willing to take responsibility for, you know what? Maybe I better take care of me first before I want to step into this role of being a leader. This originates with some of this ancient literature, and I'll continue. Unlike the Spey woman, the Thule seems to have held an official, social, and possibly legal position among both the Anglo-Saxons and the Old Norse. In Beowulf, the hero's antagonist, Unferth, is described as a Thule, which the Christian scribe glosses over as an orator. I should probably call myself an orator. I'm talking of shit. That is, he speaks for the king, testing Beowulf's right to make the heroic challenge against Grendel, probably because of the influence of Christianity. One of the reasons Beowulf is important to us because it is that story at that powerful transition. It wasn't just a date in history where, okay, Charlemagne beheaded 4,500 Saxon nobles, forcibly converted, and everybody's Christian past that. This is a transition that took a long, long time. The last crusades were not against in the Holy Land, they were against Lithuania, fighting the last pagan kingdom, Lithuania and what is now Poland. That was the last crusade of the church against people in Europe to forcibly make them into Christians. It's a lot of money there. I mean, if everybody's giving their tithe of 10%, I mean, you can't just let that go. You can't just let those bastards be pagan while everybody else is paying up. It wouldn't be fair. But Beowulf is that one document that shows this transition. And it's an interesting document because it shows the old pagan king had a weakness. He wasn't the man that he needed to be. And Beowulf comes in and the ideas of Christianity begin to settle in about the kingdom. And Beowulf also was weak. But because of the glory of the one true God, he was able to die with honor, so on and so forth. It's very much a story of the transition from pagan to Christian king. It romanticized it. And if the royalty is doing it, well, the people are going to follow suit. There's no choice. I digress. His ritual religious function does not appear at all, but a hint of the great worship in which a Thule was held appears in the lines which state that Unferth had a special place at the king's feet, even though he had killed his own kinsman. The Thule in whose memory the Snoldivev stone was set up was the Thule at the Salhose, This is to say he spoke officially from the top of certain burial mounds, probably those in which his ancestors or the ancestors of the rulers of the Thu area were buried, and gained much of his inspiration from the whites within. So he's supposed to have a very legitimate connection to his ancestors. A very important thing, because our ancestors, once they cross over to wherever it is that might, whatever they begin to exist as after we shed this mortal form, there's always the understanding, I think everybody kind of possesses it, that they all of a sudden have a very clear indication of a lot of things we can't figure out right here. Every one of those ancestors holds a torch, a light of inspiration, Kinaz, the rune that is the illuminating light. And once you cross that dimension, I guess everything, you figure it all out. Begin to take the mask off of the energy, and you can see exactly what's going on. The perception that an individual might be able to accomplish this is probably one of the most important things that these Thuls do, is they create that perception within the community that they have this ability. Whether or not they did, I can't say, I wasn't there. Now, it worked though. For those people, it provided positive purpose, guidance, and direction for thousands of years. Now, sometimes, the whole village died of the plague, but most of the time they did pretty good. They got to live, they got to fight, they got to love, they got to have children, they got to be men and women in an environment that may not necessarily have always been kind, but they got to live a good life. Now, the aspect of the Thul's role is also similar to that of the Icelandic law speaker who pronounced law from the promontory known as the Law Rock in Thingvellir, and who at the least case of the law speaker Thorgrir also called on inspiration from the worlds beyond in speaking his decrees. Other figures described as Thul are the Etin Vafthrûdnir and Sigurd's foster father Regin, both whites of great age and wisdom whose primary purpose seems to be the preservation and transmission of ancient lore to younger beings. And that's absolute horseshit. As well as being an inspired speaker, then a kindred Thul should be well and deeply versed in the history and lore of the northern folks and able to bring that lore to those around him in many ways. His role is similar or identical to that of the elder of the Ring of Troth. He is a trained figure whose knowledge of the tradition is authoritative, and though not absolutely so. Now, this is from the book Teutonic Religion, and many people have read this book, Teutonic Religion, again and again and again. So we get the idea that the Thul is a fairly important character, right? Okay, good. I can take that. I get it. Thul, good, awesome. But this idea that other figures described as Thuls are the Etin Vafthrûdnir and Sigurd's foster father Regin is complete horseshit. Here's where the false dichotomy begins to come into play with regards to our spirituality. Vafthrûdnir is the giant whose overbearing and eager and hubris draws the attention of Odin himself to have a competition of who knows what. Now this jackass decides to jump in there with both feet and say, oh yeah, I'll have a competition with you, and the loser loses his head, not knowing he's dealing with Odin. If you can't meet somebody and understand that, you know what, there might be something I can learn there, what is that going to be? You may not like them, may not want to talk to them. But to have an open and honest discussion requires something called confidence. Because if I'm having a discussion with someone, I can't always be sitting around afraid that they're going to take something from me, that the fact that they know something that I don't is going to make me less than somehow. And Vafthrûdnir is the epitome of the individual who believes that, well, if somebody knows more than I do, well, I'm not going to be as important as I think I am. This is an aspect of the ego. This is the greatness in one's own mind without ever having to do anything to earn it. Just, I'll know something that they don't. I see it run rampant. This is not an aspect of the Thul. And the idea that an author might throw that in there as if it's legitimate is misleading at best. Now, the idea that Sigurd's foster father, Regin, might be considered a Thul because he passed on preservation and transmission of ancient lore is dangerous. See, Regin was supposed to be the short individual, but he was considered wise and fierce and powerful. But as you read through the story, we find out that he's not. The whole time Sigurd is growing up, Reagan is telling this young man, this Sigurd, he's telling him, well, I was wronged this way, and there was a little bit of this involved, and my brother stole all of this from me, and since I'm taking care of you and raising you as my own, well, you kind of owe me something here a little bit. Let me tell you this story of why I hate him, and then you can hate them just as much as I do, and it'll be important. That's not the passing on, the preservation of ancient lore. That's the manipulation of a young mind to hate something that you hate, but lack the courage to do anything about. Because that's exactly what's going on. Reagan can't take care of Fafnir. So he convinces this young man that, well, since I've done all this for you, since I cared for you and raised you, and you hate the same things that I do, I think, well, why don't you do this for me? And let's, there'll be a great treasure involved, and it'll be important. It'll be a most worshipful thing. This is the same thing that Loki does when he talks into blind Hodor's ear at the edge of the crowd, and he says, go ahead and take the shot. Like all the other gods, it'll be a most worshipful thing, not knowing that he's given him the one dart that'll kill Balder and steal the sun from the world. Reagan does the same thing with Sigurd. Fafnir is none of his business. He probably couldn't care less that his brother took the gold from him because he was too weak to keep it. So we have to ask ourselves, if most of these authors are looking at these individuals without any kind of discerning eye as to what it might be to describe the importance of this role, and then take two individuals who failed dismally at the task and call this an important thing, how could we begin to understand what it means to be stable in this faith? Because all we have is a superficial understanding based on some 17th century writing or 18th century or 19th century, or perhaps even some shallow-ass 20th century writing that does not have a discerning eye or an understanding of what's going on because, well, maybe they didn't clear away the wreckage of their own past. Maybe they haven't done the legitimate hard work necessary to be a leader of men. See, this is the problem that I have with a lot of it. When the uninspired and uninitiated begin to profess understanding on the words that they read, it's very clear oftentimes they possess not the wisdom. And that's what you have right here. They've read the words, they possess not the wisdom. And how do we build stability out of that? Well, let's get back to brass tacks. Let's find out what it really looks like. Should we be pursuing money as an indication that we're a little bit better than everybody else? Because when it boils right down to it, that's what it means. Like I said, it works best in the medium it was designed for, that is to spend. What is success in your life? What does that look like? How are you going to know? Do you have a stable platform in this spirituality, in this faith, from which to launch any kind of effort you deem important in your life for you to become what you believe, what you feel, what you want to love to become? Because that's the real question this spirituality has to answer for everyone before it goes anywhere. Simply being a part of this group or being a part of that group or putting an adjective in front of the type of Austria you want to be is not creating a stable platform. It's simply reiterating the idea that, well, I'm a little bit better than you because, well, I know this and I kind of understand that. And I think this belief is a little bit more right than yours. And that makes me, well, I'm a little bit more important than you. Oh, how so? What's your platform look like? See, because most of the time when you look at the realm of the spirit, I don't know about you, but I see many, many, many pagan faiths. And the realm of the spirit for most of them appears to be broad and roomy. Let's take a look at the Havamal and see what it says about money. A man knows not, if nothing he knows, that gold often apes begets. One man is wealthy and one is poor, yet scorn for him none should know. That's pretty simple. Among fit young sons saw I well-stocked folds. Now bear they the beggar's staff. Wealth is as swift as a winking eye, and of friends the falsest it is. I assure you that's true. So what should we be shooting for with regards to the spirituality? I'm pretty fond of the idea of being able to love. I'm pretty fond of the idea of being able to start with myself. I'm pretty fond of being able to lay in that bed right there and sleep well at night because I'm not tortured by, damn, I could have done that better. Man, I really shouldn't have said that. Anyone that knows me well enough knows that neither one of those things really trouble me. But there was a time in my life when they did. There was a time in my life when I wasn't what I could be. That's a humiliating experience. See, nobody wants to be humiliated. I don't mind being a little bit humble. I don't want to be humiliated. Now, how can I avoid that kind of situation where someone might humiliate me? Do I need to learn everything? Do I need to have all the money? Do I need to have the fastest car, the prettiest girl, the best clothes, the biggest hammer? What do I need so that I won't be humiliated? Do I need to write 40 fucking books and call myself important? What should we do to not be humiliated? Sometimes it simply means keeping my mouth shut, which ain't the easiest damn thing for me to do. But we need to pay close attention to these words here, because it just told me, hey man, that money is the swift as a winking eye, a friend's the falsest it is. So maybe I need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what the details are that I need to be handling so I might move forward in this world. And how about instead of trying to figure out how to move forward, maybe I need to figure out how am I going to be important enough to treat myself like the person I want others to treat me as. One of the most profound things I heard a lady say, some woman was asking her how to find the man she should love. She said, you know what? She said, I want you to imagine that man, and I want you to imagine how he might love you. Imagine the perfect scenario. And the same thing goes for men. Get an image of that woman and imagine how she might love you. Perfect partner, the one you dream of, the one that fires your imagination, and how they might treat you. Now treat yourself like that. And see, because if we could treat ourselves like that, all of a sudden, some of these things that people might say about me, well, they really don't mean shit. There's no threat to anything about me because somebody says that, because I've got kind of affinity for myself. I had a lady say one time, nobody loves Brian Wilton like Brian Wilton. And I've made fun of it for many years because it's very true. And I think we all need to feel that way. Nobody should love you more than you love you. And I look back on some of my past and how I've behaved and how I've acted. And like I've said before, if anybody had treated me like I treated myself, I'd have beat their ass. So let's come in here and start looking at some of these things about building a stable platform. Because the next thing that comes up in the have them all is a real simple thing. Cattle die and kinsmen die. And so one dies oneself. One thing now that never dies is the fame of a dead man's deeds. Cattle die and kinsmen die, and so one dies oneself, but a noble name will never die if good renown one gets. Now, there's another translation of that that's got a very heavily Christianized interpolation that talks about judgment, as if the Norns might give judgment. I find that very dubious and questionable, and I think that's most certainly a Christian interpolation. How would anyone know what your judgment is? Well, so that doesn't mean shit. It means I can't use that. That makes no sense to me. And that's another thing we need to look at with all of this, just like the idea about the Thule and Vafthrûdnir and Reagan. If I look at them as Thules, how am I going to use that in my life to make my life better? Do I have the insight necessary to look at that? And I hate to say it, be the doubting Thomas. Too many people read these literature and they don't understand exactly what's coming in there. What is the mindset of the individual writing it? What goal are they pushing? What are they trying to do? For that, at that point, and that book was written, it was a very nationalist kind of effort for colonial Europe. the justification that they might be right and do these things and conquer the world. Instead of just saying, hey, we're big enough and bad enough and we're going to take it, they had to persuade the general public that, well, it's okay to really do this, shit. Of course, they could always say, in the name of the one true God. But that's how we got to do these things, because we're all going to die. At some point, this is going to stop working. I'm going to fall over. I'm going to flop out there in the yard someday, and they're going to put me in a hole in the ground. I got a bunch of kids, grandkids, and one of them fuckers better take my book to Mars. But my noble name will never die. It's just how it goes, guys. If good renown one gets, how does good renown one gets? Handle the details of your life. Handle those little things that we so often want to screw up. Well, that's not really important. Well, why am I thinking that way? Why are we asking ourselves the hard questions? Courage and honesty are at the top of the 9 noble virtues for a reason. Do we have what it takes to be courageous and ask ourselves these questions honestly? Why am I thinking that way? Why do I need to hate like that? What the hell am I going to lose if that person gets something that I don't get? The greatest example of that kind of manipulation is Black Lives Matter. Those people are thoroughly convinced that they're not going to be as important enough if we continue to operate the same way, and white people get to continue building success, stability, and homes while they can't. I think it's the greatest farce ever foisted upon a class of people. And it's a cancer in our society. It's a sad thing to see. It's a disruptive thing to see, but it's also a manipulative thing for us. Few things will raise our ire rather than watching somebody throw a fit. I mean, watch your kid throw a fit because they can't have a piece of candy in Walmart. My gosh, that'll piss people off faster than anything you've ever seen. They will have a literal come apart. Drag that kid's kicking and screaming through the aisles. Everybody's pissed. Look, my gosh, who are they getting full faced by every ugly ass woman in the store? And it's just, man, it'll drive you crazy. Same thing's going on with the media. There's so many things that will drag us off the course of the very important work of building ourselves first, so we might legitimately do something of important and die with that good name, or have accomplished something in this world that we keep forgetting that success ain't where it's at. Stability and a good home and loving friends and people that'll stand beside you, that's where it's at. You only get that when you handle the details in life. If you get to go on here and start talking a bunch of horse shit, and somebody comes in and starts wanting to be your friend, they take a good look around, and well, you're kind of a fuck up, and all of a sudden they're not hanging around you anymore, maybe it's time to start taking care of some of the details in life. And we got to start looking at that with regards to also true. I mean, we don't got to. We keep flouncing along like this for a long time. But if we're ever to expect this thing to be as special to everyone as it is to us, as we try to live a good life, we've got to set that example of what it means to do the right thing the first time. I don't always do it. Stand there and take it like a man. But keep trying. God damn, just keep trying. Ask the hard question. Reading those books. Why is that important? How can I use that in my life? What makes that so special that it's going to create within me the kind of spiritual experience and expected phenomenon that we so desperately cling to on a daily basis? All the time you see people, well, I saw a raven, or I saw this, or I saw that, or I saw a rune in the woods. These are people that are desperately looking for the idea of something that justifies this radical departure from the norm of the world we live in, of the societal structure that we grew up in and we held special. We begin to see through it. We begin to understand there's got to be something more. There's got to be something that feeds this in here. Well, we've changed all of that now. Shouldn't we at least expect something very special and different in our world now? Why are some people not getting it? Well, it starts right here. Okay, I screwed that person over because I thought I could be more important, and so I did this. Do I owe them amends? Do I need to pay them money? Do I need to do the right thing? What can I do with that? Okay, I stole this from that person because I was a fucking worthless junkie and I needed to get high. Okay, how do I take care of that? Go back and be honest about it. Okay, well, I screwed this lady over because I thought this girl was hotter. And then, well, that didn't go well. So how do I fix that? Or do I just go on about my life? You got to go through these things. And it has to be just that simple. And it has to be just that direct. And it has to be just that honest. Otherwise, some of these high-minded principles that you hear people like Dr. Jordan Peterson talking about, or Master Chim, or Paul Wagner, or Jack Donovan, when you hear them talk about these things, if you haven't handled that very simple detail of being honest enough to say, I was wrong in that, I should have done better, how do I go back and make it right? It's never going to work. I don't care how much of this you read. I don't care how much of my books you read. I don't care how much any of it you read. If you can't go through there and be honest with yourself and say, you know what, I could have done a little bit better. How do I fix it? This is as far as you get. This is as far as we get. Is this good enough for everything we want to talk about with people talking about their ancestors and changing the world? Is this good enough to accomplish that? Not yet. And it ain't going to be somebody jump up like John Wayne and throw on a funny looking hat and be the leader of everybody. Tribes are all working together to accomplish the same thing. Many different tribes, many different good men and good women that could stand next to each other as confident individuals, and each one knowing that person handles the details. They have a stable platform. That person has what it takes to stand up and do a good day's work. That woman has what it takes to stand there beside a man and do the right thing. That child understands it's going to be a good man or a good woman. It's going to take care of the details. It's not going to slough them off. It's not going to try to be cool. I don't give a shit how cool you think you are. If you don't have the details in your world, you're going to fart in the supermarket and it's going to stink. And there goes your cool. Right? Now, with the details alive, you might get through a little bit better. That's about all I got for that, man. Oh. See if you have any questions on that. I know that's a hard one. Nobody likes to hear that shit, but that's just the way it is, guys.
I mean, I kind of came at the end of that, but I think there's something has to happen on the micro just as much as the macro.
What I initially started with, Jason, was the idea that in Teutonic religion, Gunderson compares Reagan and Vafthrûdnir with a Thule, which I think is absolute horseshit. Vafthrûdnir is not a Thule, no more than Reagan is a Thule with regards to Sigurd. He says that their role is one of importance of passing on ancient lore. And yet both of them do nothing more than manipulate the situation because they believe it'll make themselves wealthier or it'll make their ego, make them more important because of a contest. This kind of idea that, well, I might know more than you or I might have more money than you is the kind of horseshit that has led many people to ruination. And it is not part or of a basis of a foundation of stability in our lives we need to create. And I personally take issue with it. And the problem is that we have a lot of heathen literature that goes out there and puts forth this kind of horse shit as if it might be legitimate or guide people to where it needs to be. Though they read the words, they possess not the wisdom of them, parroting 17th century scholars. And it gives me a case of the red ass. I'm just saying.
Well, I was going to say, I had a phenomenal weekend, and it was kind of interesting because nature's going to flow the way it's going to flow. And if you're not being honest with yourself, looking at history, building from it, and looking at the future, you'll miss stuff. I happened to sit with a group of men from all walks of life down south, and they all came together to go, something's got to change. And they all had to be honest with themselves, and we all admit that it was our tribes fighting with each other. A lot of headway started going through.
Say that again, man.
Well, I had a Christian, I had a South African, I had a New Zealander, all just happened to be at a random barbecue. It's all turned into these various tribes, kind of what you're saying, starting to work together, make a plan. People were moved. They felt connected, even though we're coming from all walks of life. But the one thing, every single person in that circle I was sitting with today, yesterday, I just happened to think I was coming on for a barbecue and shooting some guns this weekend. And all these people just came together, like the universe just made it happen. And self-honesty is what moved everybody to action. putting that ego aside and accepting the truth and moving forward, being honest with themselves as well. I definitely
we
think
need
there's
more of
something-
it.
Yeah,
we
there's
need
definitely something
more
in
of
the
it, and
universe.
also true. We've got to quit operating under the ideas of these righteously indignant thought processes that give us someone to hate to make us feel like we're more important than. And that's a real crippling issue. I don't know how many people, I don't know why people can't figure it out, but I see a lot of people talk about David Lane, but from my point of view, he drove the getaway car while someone else got out and shot a Jewish talk show host in his driveway. That's the exact same kind of horseshit of Loki whispering blind voters ear to take a shot at somebody. And we're still looking at that as if it might be legitimate.
But see, I guess I'm just having a hard time expressing it. But like you're saying, that's external focused. Every single person at that group, what moved me this weekend, just by pure chance, being in the right place, right time, every single one of these people own that they're themselves and their people let this shit happen, and now we have to take action. They didn't blame anybody else.
We
That was
do
the
have
first
to take
time in a long
action.
time. It's powerful.
We have to take action from a position of authority, not just the righteous and indignant. I think that's a good thing. I think that's the kind of courage that should mark a man, is the ability to think about these things, to honestly assess that, to really take a personal inventory. And it's a real, any business that doesn't take a routine inventory of what it has will go bankrupt. And people are the same way. If we're not taking a routine inventory of where we can do better or be stronger or stand taller, how are we ever going to be able to be someone worthy to stand at someone's side? See, that's the
that's
thing.
right there in our runes and frets. Where you lack, you have to be honest and have that exchange of gifts to make both stronger and the community grow. And that takes a certain level of humility.
Brian, you mentioned earlier about taking care of yourself, and I've always had this saying that you can't take care of others till you take care of yourself.
That's exactly right. You can't give something away you ain't got.
That's right. And now I talk about taking care of soldiers, and I said sometimes taking care of soldiers means putting a foot in their ass.
That's right.
And it's the same with me. Sometimes I have to put a foot in my own ass to get me started and get me back on the right path. And
It's true.
So,
but
we all need that accountability from one another too.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. That's something else too. When I see these guys that you hear these you hear these guys that they might slap their girlfriend around, or they start running their mouth, or they're mean to them, or they slap their kids around. I really have an issue with that, because there's a dude somewhere that dude's best friend. Why in the fuck isn't he saying, hey, you need to stop that shit?
Yeah.
You need to stop acting that way. You need to figure out why you're so angry at all that stuff. And why are we not standing up as men to other men to say that kind of stuff and do that kind of stuff and be that example? Oh, he won't like me anymore. I don't give a shit. If I got somebody that's might call my best friend that's whipping his old lady's ass, I don't need him. If he can't figure it out, you ain't hanging out with me. I don't want to see it. You better hope I don't decide to break your arms.
Well, I think part of it is that you have a failing. A man doesn't even have the courage to reach out and be like, hey, I need help with this. Doesn't have the balls to speak up and pick somebody else.
Well, there's a lot of stigma with it, Jason. There's a lot. We're manly men doing manly things. Hell, we're Vikings and we'll wear hammers, and we shoot guns and drink whiskey. But we got to start doing that. We got to start doing that amongst men. We got to start doing that amongst each other, holding ourselves accountable.
Brian, one of my biker brothers one time said, "You have to really think about the image you're putting forward as a man. If those men have friended you to begin with, because they only surround themselves with people weak enough that they can honestly get by with whatever they want to do and still be the hero."
It's true. It's true. That's one of the reasons I remember there've been a couple of situations in my life that I literally put myself in a situation I really didn't know who I could talk to about it. And both times I reached out to Justin Garcia, and that joker ain't no joke. I just couldn't tell you. He will bottom line it for you, but he does it in this real fast talking kind of New York thing, and you don't even realize he just tore you a new ass until about 10 minutes after the conversation. But I still love him to death, you know. He's, huh?
It hits you when you turn the knob to walk out the door. Like, wait a second.
That's right, man. That's exactly right. But he's
When you're
he's
holding
good
your
at what
ass
he
in your
does.
hand,
I'll tell you that. Huh?
when you're holding your ass in your hand, walking out the door, thanks.
Why are my guts spilling everywhere? You know, yeah, right. But we need more of that, man. We need more men willing to do that to each other. You know, and that it has to be from a position of stability. It can't be because I have more dollars than you. It can't be because I'm more famous than you. It has to be from a position of stability as good men standing up for one another, you know, and it's so hard to create that because we're not afraid to go into hell. We're not going to go to hell because of some bullshit, but it's real hard to stand up there and risk the rejection of somebody that might be important in your life. But at some point, if we're cultivating a stable platform from which to launch the ideas of what we might think success is, and I'm telling you, that's going to be redefined as this continues to grow. We've got to be able to stand there and say, hey, you got to do better, man. Matt has told me many times, Brian, you got to do better.
The pendulum swing on that, Brian, is that sometimes you'll find you don't know how strong you've gotten, like how far you've grown until you step back and look at what you've got. I mean, some people don't have any idea where they're at in life at all, like no clue.
Oh, I do. I pulled muscle in my neck the other day and my head was just like, and I still hurt from it.
And suddenly you were old, right? Yeah.
Realized 20 years went by.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, all of a sudden you're 50 years old. What the
like
fuck?
shit. Yeah.
20 years, where'd they go? 20 years,
Right.
I don't know.
Well, it's what it's all about, guys. But I really,
My hip hurt.
yeah, we got to, I mean, this is my thing. We got to talk about stability. We got to really talk about building stable lives without all of these ideas that we think bring others to the table, and such as being mad about this or being mad about that. If we build an idea within ourselves of what it means to be stable and solid in the world, you know, the right people are going to show up. The right people are going to be there to help each other along, not because we're going to get something from each other, but because, well, shit, man, we've all kind of been through it, ain't we? We've all kind of been brave enough to handle these details. And that's the real strength of everything we're trying to do here, is to be, equals is such a cheesy fucking term anymore, but you know, what's wrong with being a good man or a good woman? You know, and from there, who knows what you can accomplish? You know, that's my
well. As far as money goes, another little saying of mine is the poor can't help the poor.
True.
So
at some point, you're going to have to pay the bills.
That's right. I'm going to try to make as much money as I can to take care of my family and donate to a little cause. Donate to my kin folks can't afford the funeral, so I'd have to give money to that. You know, being able to help people along the way, you know, having enough money to help it. I'm not rich by any stretch of imagination, but I ain't broke either. You know, so
I get it, man.
So if I can help my family and donate here and there to causes I care about, I'm rich as far as I'm concerned.
You know what? I don't remember what year it was, but I started a thing called Nana's Hearth. I don't know what happened, but there was this turn of events. I think it was about the time that little boy died, and I don't want to talk about that, but he, you know, they were really struggling. That family was really struggling with all of that. And I happened to have, for some reason, I had a really good job at the time and I had money left over. And I looked at my cabinets and they were full of food. And so I began to give it away. And I started Nana's Hearth, and there were people that would reach out to me. And I know a lot of them were doing drugs. You know, their electric was fixing to get cut off. Hey, can you help me with this? And hey, can you help me with that? And it's now AFA Folk Services. And we've helped people pay for funerals, and we've helped people do this, and we've helped people buy a bill of groceries, or people that were caught in a tight spot. And that is kind of part of what it means to be stable in the world, because other people are still figuring it out. Other people still need help. Other people still need somebody to offer a hand and say, hey, come on, buddy, I got you. And if there's nothing else that we can do as stable-minded individuals in this world, following this path, than to reach, now they may never thank you. They may never remember your name. They may never give you a damn thing back in return. They might even stab you in the back. But to be able to do that right thing to begin with is one of the most powerful things we might ever achieve in this world. Who knows what that person might go on and do from there, because somebody cared enough to say, oh, you don't have an apartment, you only got enough money for one night. Here's a little bit of money to help you through. I know that it has changed a lot of lives. And it's still working today. I mean, but I remember when I did that, there was a huge part of the community that was real upset with me because you don't understand what this really is. You don't understand heathenry. It's all about industriousness and perseverance, and these people ought to be able to make it on their own. Well, nobody shows up to the door of any church because everything's going fucking hunky-dory in their life. Sometimes shit is tough. You got to figure it out. And if we can't help those people step up, what are we doing, guys? Come on. You know what I mean?
I might be exposing my throat, leading my chin here a little bit.
I'll knock you out.
But we'll do it if I'm wrong. I asked for it. But no, I mean, money does help. And I think one of the things, there's two things I want to say. This is the first one, is we should be looking at ways for kind of bringing resource in from the outside in for the community grow. Because you're right, poor people can't help poor people too much. You know, got to figure out how to get a little bit tricked in and get our folk GDP going, I guess you could say. But the other one's absolutely right. You know, being in the insurance and the investment business, you know, I listen to people who are making $1 million a year. And one thing they all have in common is a lot of them started having success. One, they projected and kind of made an image of the future they want to have.
That's right.
But the biggest one is every single one of them they gave something to somebody at some time, and they kept on giving. And it goes right into that gifting cycle. What goes into the wealth comes back out. And sure, you might not get a thanks from that guy, but you know what? That guy might go on and do something great, and somebody else who's in his toe line helped you out when you're down. You don't know what's going to happen. But
you know what else they do, Jason?
Every successful people is they give, and it comes back.
You know what else they do?
What?
They take care of the details. They have a stable platform from which to build whatever they want to build in the world. That's kind of what I'm talking about now. Build that stable platform. Find something solid to stand on. And I think the key to doing that, I know a lot of wealthy people that are miserable as fuck. They have bulldozed their way through life and made a fortune, but they're not happy. I think there's a unique opportunity here for us to really show the world what this could be. And that's the thing that fires my imagination. Is somebody could take something I've said and just take it 10 times further than me.
Take it to Mars.
Take it to Mars.
Well, one of the best perspectives I got was going to Afghanistan.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The poorest person you know in America lives like a king compared to those people.
True.
I know it may be miserable in America. You may seem like you are the low end of the totem pole, but I promise you, if you look worldwide, you're the top 1%.
See, that's true. Hell, Glenn, you go to one of these damn border towns and see the same thing. You know, Thailand is the same way. Korea is the same way. You get out in the countryside, then people are poor. Here we are in the wealthiest country in the world, and there's a bunch of us that are miserable. But be that as it may, all I'm saying is let's handle the details. Let's handle the details and build that stable platform. Money ain't everything, but it works best in the medium it was designed for, that is to spend. And let's handle the details first about life, and then let's go somewhere. We can't, it's like people coming in and want to use the runes right off the bat. Oh, well, I'll use a rune. I won't have to do any of the work necessary to become something better. Oh, well, I don't have to do. Oh, well, I can get the gifting cycle, and I don't have to pay attention. I don't have to do. I don't have to change this about myself. Oh, well, now I can drink all I want because I'm a heathen. You know, there's some things you got to address. Get the details down first. That's why I don't teach anything about the runes. There's too many people want to use that as a shortcut in spirituality, so they don't have to do any of the work necessary to become something more. And I want people to do that work first.
Charity begins at home.
What'd you say?
Charity begins at home.
Charity begins at home. So does love. You got to make love all day to make love at night.
I absolutely agree. If you don't have the right focus and the right perspective on things, those runes aren't going to do a whole lot for you.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. That's why this lore is still here. That's why our gods have thrown us a lifeline to help us get that perspective in this world.
That's right.
That's exactly. They're here to help us figure it out. I mean, they're still at our sides. They're still at our back. They're still a part of who we are. And in a world that's more interested in herding us like cattle based upon news stories and the media and whatever else, television and movies and all kinds of shit, the fact that this stuff is gaining the prominence that it is in the world tells me that there's people that want to see something more. There's people that want to feel something more. They want to believe in something more. And I firmly believe that first starts in believing in ourselves, no matter where we are in life. You're still
Brian,
somebody.
A thought. We are the ancestors of the generation after us, here and alive right now. Like right now, when they can hear our voices and we can lead them, we can take care of things now where we are. Why wait until they're having to look for a sign? Why wait till they're listening for a whisper on the wind to figure out what we could be helping build in our own families, in our communities? And that's part of it too.
Yeah, we don't own anything in this world. We're just borrowing it from our descendants.
Yep.
Well, mine are going to get a hell of a name.
Good.
I've not yet begun.
Apparently, a book on Mars.
I don't mean to. I know you guys want to get off of here, but I want to say something.
All means, man, cut loose.
Tenor just said that we are the ancestors of the next generation, but I happen to be running into a certain current situation where I did try to help, and I tried to teach, and they don't want to listen. They don't want to. They just want to take all the help, and they don't want to try to better themselves at all. So
happiness is the absence of expectation, Randy.
So basically what I had to do in that situation is just basically put it out on the fucking table and be like, look, I've helped you. I've done everything that we've tried to do. You're not fucking listening. So make your decision, and I hate that I had to do that, but it's like, we can give and we can teach, but we are not just an unflowing fountain of shit for them to just take advantage of.
Hey,
But isn't that a lesson too?
What do you think I am for the community at large?
Yeah, and you know how many times I've told a soldier, I told you so. I told you to do what I told you to back then, and you wouldn't listen to me. Now you're in the shit.
That's it, man.
It happens all the time.
And that's the thing, man. We're going to give this stuff out, man. But if we're giving it from a stable platform, it doesn't have to eat my lunch anymore. People can take what I say, or they take it, or they leave it. I hate watching my kids make the mistakes that they make, and I hate it. And because sometimes it means that somewhere along the path, I may have fucked up a little bit, to put it lightly. But if I'm stable now, I know they got a place they can come. And that wasn't always that way in my life. And that means a fucking lot to me. Randy, I get it, man. I get it. I really do, man. Believe you me. I've talked to people that have called me in crisis situations, and I have said stuff to them that would fix it. And they repeat back to me something that I don't even know what they're talking about. And it just blows my mind. But you're right. All you got to do is lay it on the table. Whether they take it is up to them. But if we've done our best, we get to walk away from it because we've done the right thing. And that's all we can do, man. It's all we can do is do the right thing. You know?
Yeah.
Privates are a stupid breed of people, Glenn. There's no curing that. I don't know what I can't help you there, buddy.
I was going to say, you had the tools of somebody. Self-sufficiency. If they don't want to pick them up and use them, that's not on you anymore.
Yeah, you're teaching men to fish. If they're not going to learn to fish, then that's not on you.
Yeah.
Or if you teach them to fish and they refuse, it's not on you either.
Yeah, you know, Joe's primary MOS is to fuck up. That's his primary.
Yeah, man. That's the job description in truth. When I was a private, my rifle zero was 8 up. And I said that out loud one day, and I never got to live it down. But whatever. Guys, I appreciate your time. I really do. I appreciate you joining me here. I love these talks. They mean the world to me.
Well, I wouldn't tune in if I didn't appreciate you, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you too, Brian.
And
thank you, Brian.
I think it's good that we're all talking here.
Thank you.
As equals, as people that are going to try to do something better. That means a lot to me, and I'm sure it means a lot to y'all. I really do, and I appreciate it. So tomorrow's Monday. Go out there and grab it by the nose and whip its ass.
Grabbing him.
Have a good week. If anybody comes across something they can't handle, man, you know you can give me a call anytime. I'll be happy to help you.
All right.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care.